Hi, today I'm gonna show you how to knit this fingerless glove. Let's get started. Please check my description box for details. The reason I knit these gloves because since this virus starts, I wash my hands way more than usual and I have a little dry skin problem on my hand. Also, I knit almost every day. That doesn't help really. And when I start knitting with gloves on, it helps. Right hand at the bottom of my thumb, there's the skin problem there, and left top there. So I decide to knit different, the size of the glove. The right side, little shorter than left side. And little bit different technique around the thumb gusset. As you can see right there, little bit of hole, right? Because I was kind of lazy and I cheated. But the left side, there's no space opening around the thumb. So I am going to show you how to knit this left hand glove. And if you ever watch my 5 fingers glove, you probably know what I did. And top of the glove, I used the rib knit one purl one technique right there, and then little peacock on top of it. And I really like that texture, little bit thicker than right side as you probably can see. And you will find out later on why it's a little bit thicker than the other side. Anyway, this is size adjustable gloves, but you really have to find out how many casts you really want to start with. And if you have no clue, you have to have gauge. I already knew I should start with 50 cast because I knit this type of the glove with same type of the yarn before. So I already knew 50 cast. But if you don't know, you should take gauge and make sure how many cast you should start. Now let's get started. This is the yarn I use. Then cast on. I use stretchy cast on because the rib for the wrist, if it's stretchy, it's easy to put it on. Okay, and stretchy cast on easy, just a little tiny bit of the work. That's it. Okay, which is the needle movement. Usually go like that, but the needle, you have to go under both two yarn. And there's the extra twist there. Then cast on. One more time. The needle has to go both yarn, go under like that. And then there's a twist there, extra yarn, then cast on. And you just have to keep doing same thing. And cast should be multiple of 2. I made 50. How did I know? Because I've already knit same type of the glove before. If you don't know, you should take a gauge. Anyway, stretchy cast on. The needle has to go under both yarn and then just a regular cast. Create the extra twist. There you go. That's about it. And after cast, you have to connect both ends. So make sure the cast is not twisted. Okay, 50 cast, and I am going to use magic loop technique. If you never ever try magic loop technique, you should watch my magic loop, video first, because it's a little bit tricky. It's not that difficult, but I think you need to practice a little bit. And I have a way longer cable. It was little awkward, but this is the only, the needle I had. So not much I could do. Anyway, so let's connect both ends and start knitting rib. The rib should be repeat off, knit one and purl one until your desired length. I did about 2 inch, total of 30 round. And gloves usually have two, one for right and one for left, right? So if you knit for both, the first one, you have to write everything down. For me, I am not going to knit the other hand because I already have one. So I'm not going to write it down. But again, if you want to knit both hand, you really want to have same type of the glove length and all that. So you should write it down. Then next hand or glove, you don't really have to count or you don't have to think or nothing, right? You just have to follow your pattern. So remember, if this is your first one, write everything down. There we go. I need about 2 inch. This is good enough for my wrist. And now I would like you to knit few rows until over there, which is the carpal bone. There's a little, the bump just above the wrist. So I did about 6 round and no increasing yet. After you hit the carpal bone, you start making thumb gusset, which is increasing. But before you start the thumb gusset, there's no increasing. So just knit. And again, you have to write it down how many rows you knit. So anyway, I did 6 row, just all knit. Again, all knit for few rows until you hit that, carpal bone right there. Now we slowly increase for the thumb gusset towards to the bottom of the thumb. And obviously, you will knit rest of the finger as well at the same time. So let's start thumb gusset, set up row, begin marker, and knit one. Right after the begin marker, knit one, then make one left right after the knit one. Pick up the running thread right there and hook on to left needle from front like that. Then knit back loop. It's a little bit, awkward to do that, so take your time. Back loop, knit, then knit one. You just increase one stitch, then knit just one, then make one right. Again, using the running thread and hook onto left needle from behind this time and knit front loop. This is make one right, then knit one. After knit one, place the marker. And after that, on knit, then next two rows, row 2 and row 3, should be all knit. Those 3 rows are set up rows. So I meet you at the end of the setup row number 3. And starting the real thumb Gusset, it's pretty much same, just the wording is different. Thumb Gusset row number 1. The first marker is begin marker. So I'm gonna knit last one stitch. There you go. Slide the marker and right after the marker knit one. Then always make one left right after the first stitch. Make one left, make one left and right. The only difference is how you hook on to the left needle. That's it. So you gotta be very careful. Anyway, make one left and then knit until one last stitch before the next marker. And then make one right to increase one stitch right there. Pick up the running thread, then knit front loop. Then one last stitch before the marker, knit one. That's it. And then thumb Gusset row number 2 and row number 3 is all knit. So slowly increase the thumb Gusset. And you just repeat row number 1 till row number 3 until you hit the space between thumb and digital finger. Now, some people wonder why I use the make one left technique on my right side and then make one right technique on my left side. There's reason. I'm using make one left technique on my right side, but when I look at my hand like that, the thumb shifting towards to left. This is the reason why I use the make one left technique on my right side. Thumb shift towards to left. What about the other side of the hand? I use make one right technique on the left side, but the thumb shifting towards to right. And whenever you hit the bottom of the thumb, you have to stop making thumb Gusset right there. And then you have to kind of separate the thumb and forefingers. Here comes, slowly increase the thumb Gusset, and now those two markers meet at the bottom of the thumb like that. This is the time you should stop. And now you transfer thumb stitch. So I am finishing row number 3. Knit until the begin marker. And whenever you hit the begin marker, remove the marker and using the scrap yarn and transfer all the thumb stitches. Do not use the stitch holder because stitch holder is too hard and straight and you need kind of flexible. So use the scrap yarn to transfer all the thumb stitch. Now you leave the thumb stitch alone for a little while. You have to finish 4 finger parts first. Okay, and then you have to see how many new cast you need to reconnect that part. And I decide I am going to add 3 new cast. It's really up to you. If you have a thick hand, you can add 5 or whatever, but you know, the whole stitch has to be multiple of 2. So this is the way you add new cast. I add 3 cast, and then now you reconnect except the thumb, and then knit until your desired length. And this is a little bit awkward because the project is very small. Just take your time, and you have to remember how many cast you add, because when you knit thumb, you need this cast number later on. So anyway, again, just knit around until your desired length. But think, if you want to add rib and peacock, you gotta kind of, you know, think how much more you want, kind of thing. Now I decide I am going to stop right there. If this is yours, you can always put it on and make sure. Now, rib. Same as my wrist, so repeat off, knit 1 and purl 1. Again, until your desired length. You can do longer. You can actually skip this rib if you don't want any rib. It's really up to you. And I did about the 5 row. Then peacock. This is kind of cute design on the edge and super easy. Row number 1 till row number 4. Total of 4 rows, just all knit after the rib. This is super easy. And then the only row 5 is different, and rest of them are same. Row number 5 is repeat of yarn front. This is a little bit tricky. Yarn front, and then knit 2 together. Yarn front, knit 2 together. You just have to repeat yarn front, knit 2 together. The first yarn front, you have to be very careful because I ended up, you know, didn't yarn front, so I, you know, redo it. So make sure you have yarn front, then knit 2 together. And then after this row, 4 more rows, you just have to all knit, which means whenever you did the yarn over to the front, you create little hole, and that's the effect for this, you know, peacock design. Again, this is the yarn over part. You have to just knit, creates the hole like that, and I meet you after the 4 row of all knit. I finish 4 rows. There is hole. Don't worry about it. You just have to cast off. And I recommend you to use stretchy cast off. Knit 1, then yarn over, knit 1, then cast yarn over off first. And then original stitch off 2 times, then yarn over and knit 1. You have to repeat this. And original cast off, yarn over, knit 1, and cast, yarn over off, and then original. And after this, you have to kind of sew around, but I'll show you. First of all, cut the yarn kind of long enough, because you have to sew around. And then you turn the glove inside out. That'll be easier. There you go. Turn the glove inside out. Then you fold top part. And as you can see, when you fold, here comes the peacock, little, the edge showing off. And it's kind of hard to, sew because it's kind of curled up. If so, you just use the clip, just like I did, because you have to sew straight down, right? Just like that. And just sew them around. And do not pick the stitch far down. Just, about right area. Don't pull too hard. There you go. And yeah, just like that. And do not put the needle through to the right side. So this, the sewing yarn is showing off, right? So just picking up the superficial stitch for the back part. So you just have to sew them around. That's pretty much about it. Easy. This is how it looks after you sew them. There you go. There you go. It's little peacock. Very cute edge. I like it. It's kind of fun. You don't really need to. You just have to make a rib and then stretchy cast off. That's good enough. But I kind of, have some fun. So, and I really like that thickness around the bottom of the forefingers, especially when I knit. I don't like glove, coming down or anything like that. So this is actually really good. I really like that. And now you have to finish your thumb. This is not finished yet. Let's transfer all the thumb stitch back onto the needle. It's actually quite easy, except the row 1. The row 1, it's a little bit tricky. It's not that bad, okay? So you have to knit all the thumb stitch, and the other side of the thumb, which you add new cast. For me, 3 new cast. You have to knit up around that area, plus 2 more knit up. Kind of, sandwich those 3 cast. So let's start. You probably should see and you understand better. So knit until last one stitch of original thumb stitch. It's really small area, so just take your time. Here comes one more stitch to go. Then last one stitch of the original thumb stitch. You add marker. This is just a temporary marker, so don't worry about it. And knit one. Then now you have to knit up. Again, the number you add cast there plus 2. For me, I add 3 cast plus 2, so I have to knit up 5. So 1 before the 3 cast and 1 after the 3 cast. That makes sense. And again, it's very small project, so be careful. And knit 1 up before the 3 cast and look for the perfect place to knit up. Then under the 3 cast, which you previously added, just take your time and the search where you want to add knit up. So 1, 2, there you go, and 3. This is the 3 cast, right? Which means you have to knit up 1 more. But before you knit up last 1 stitch, you have to put the marker. And there's reason why I put the 2 markers, because you have to do the SSK around that marker and knit 2 together. So after the second marker, you knit up 1 last stitch. Just take your time. And then row number 1 is end. That's the first stitch. And second row, you just have to knit until you hit the marker. But now I'm just telling you what I just did. Put the marker and 1 last original stitch, you knit, right? And then knit up 5 stitch. But 1 last knit up. Before you knit up 1 last stitch, you add second marker. That's what I did. There you go. It's a little tricky, but believe me, take your time and don't give up. Just do what I say, and that'll be, beautiful later on. So let's start row number 2. Again, knit until first marker. And you can see 2 stitch there. That's because I use the end tail to knit as well, so it's not 2 stitch. And once you hit the first marker, remove the marker and SSK to decrease 1 stitch. There you go. So right after the first marker, which means the last original thumb stitch and first knit up stitch, you have to do SSK, which is slip, slip, knit. Again, I added only 3 casts, but I did the extra knit up, 2 extra knit up. So you have to kind of decrease 2 total, right? So SSK to decrease 1 stitch here, and the other side of the marker, you have to do knit 2 together to decrease 1 more. Then now it's even. So 1 stitch left, so you have to transfer 1 last stitch to this side. So this is the 1 last knit up and the first original thumb stitch. You have to do knit 2 together to decrease 1 stitch. And there's reason why I did this, because if you don't do this, there is always little hole around that connection area. But if you add 2 extra and then next row, decrease, that actually minimize the hole. And I'll show you later on again, the difference. Anyway, after row number 1 and row number 2, it's so easy. Just knit around until your desired length and then rib if you want. Repeat of knit 1 and purl 1 until desired length. And I didn't make any peacock edge for thumb. I just did the stretchy bind off. That's about it. And this is all done. The right side is a lot shorter. There's no peacock. And left side longer and thick around that, the bottom of 4 fingers, which I like. And as you can see, around near the thumb area, the left one, blue one, there's gotta be a hole. I'll show you in a minute, because for the blue one, I didn't use that, SSK and knit 2 together technique, because I wasn't sure I'm gonna upload this video or not when I was, knitting this blue one, see? So there's a kind of hole, right? I cheated. I told you about this earlier. And this one, I just knit. There's not much big hole visible, I should say. It's not visible. So you can avoid the hole, or I should say minimize the hole. So it's really up to you. You don't really need to do SSK and knit 2 together thing if it's too much to do. It's really up to you. So that's about it. And if you want to knit 5 fingers glove or mittens, I put the link in my description box. So please check them out too. That's about it for today. Enjoy knitting!